In Ghost of Tsushima Legends, you take on the role of a ghost, a highly skilled warrior worthy of legend. But not all ghosts are the same, so I'm Darcblade with a class guide to the samurai in Ghost of Tsushima Legends. In this video guide we'll cover the basics of the samurai, including abilities, skills, playstyles and more. When picking the samurai you are choosing the warrior out of the various ghost classes. Able to ignore stealth and wade headlong into battle, you're able to take on enemies face to face. This, coupled with abilities that allow you to heal yourself and stay in the action for longer periods, allows the samurai to endure longer lasting combat encounters than some of the other classes in the game. Being on the front lines, the samurai is a class that can fulfill two roles. It can deal heavy damage and thus be a damage dealer, or more importantly, which I tend to prefer, thanks to its endurance and healing abilities, it can fulfill a tank role, able to hold enemies whilst your allies pick off the weaker foes before you can team up and take down the tougher ones together. Now every ghost in Ghost of Tsushima Legends has a series of ultimates, class abilities and perks. These are all unlocked as you level up the class, with a player gaining access to all options once they reach rank 18. Now when it comes to the samurai class abilities, there are two options. The first being Spirit Pool. This is a skill that when activated, it will cause the samurai to siphon health from nearby enemies, basically draining their health to restore your own. This leans more towards the tank playstyle and gives you survivability options, especially when you're surrounded by opponents. The other option is the Explosive Blade. If you prefer the damage option, then this is the class ability to choose. Basically, when activated, your melee attacks will now deal damaging explosions upon impact, allowing the samurai to deal more damage to its foes. Out of the two, I personally prefer the Spirit Pool, as this ability adds to your survival, but the Explosive Blade is just as good if you prefer a DPS playstyle. On top of the class ability, every ghost has an ultimate. This ultimate can be used as soon as you get 3 resolve points located in the bottom left of your screen. With the samurai, its ultimate is HACHIMAN'S Fury. When activated, it will cause the samurai to instantly perform a series of lightning fast strikes against a group of opponents. You can kind of control the direction of this as well, so you can kind of pseudo aim who you hit with these lightning fast strikes. In a way, it's almost as if the samurai teleports between foes, but in fact he's just moving super quick, slicing through opponents with his katana along the way. By default, HACHIMAN'S Fury will hit up to 3 opponents, or strike a single opponent up to 3 times, depending on how you aim the ability. This ultimate is more of a damage dealing move than a survival move, although I find it great at removing weaker foes before taking on and tanking the tougher opponents. Now, as well as having class ultimates as well as class abilities, every ghost has a series of perks. There are 9 in total, each divided into 3 categories. So you only get to choose 3 perks in total out of the 9 available to us. For the samurai, in the perk 1 slot, you have the following perks: Defender, Deep Strikes and Samurai Unleashed. Defender is a perk that will increase your base health by 25. This is great for survival and players who like to tank. The next perk is Deep Strikes, which increases your melee damage by 10%, which is more for the DPS orientated samurai players out there. And then finally is the Samurai Unleashed, which decreases your class ability by 15%. This is a useful perk, especially once you start getting higher tier gear that can increase your cooldowns even further. When it comes to the perk 2 slot, you have Lightning Reflexes, Critical Defense and Resolve Increase. Lightning Reflexes is a skill that allows you to parry incoming arrows while blocking, which is a nice quality of life skill, especially when dealing with a lot of ranged opponents. Critical Defense is a perk that increases your parry and dodge windows when your health is low, so it adds to your survivability when you're most at risk. And finally is Resolve Increase, which increases your maximum resolve points by 1. Which ultimately means that you get to use your ultimate more often, or alternatively, it means you'll get to use Heavenly Strikes more, which we'll talk about in a second. Regardless, the perk 2 slots don't seem to lean towards DPS or tank, instead they're more quality of life options, and you go with what you personally prefer. As for the perk 3 slots, you have 3 more options. You have Heavenly Strikes, HACHIMAN'S Frenzy, and Legendary. Heavenly Strikes gives the samurai a new skill, an option to perform an unblockable quick strike. This is done by pressing triangle and circle, but doing this hard-hitting move will cost you 1 resolve. So it works well in unison with the increased resolve perk found in the perk 2 slot. You also have HACHIMAN'S Frenzy, which is a skill that grants your ultimate ability 2 extra strikes. So instead of hitting 3 times, it will instead hit 5 times. And finally is the legendary perk, which allows you to increase the number of legendary items you can have on your character by 1. This is an endgame perk, obviously the last one you get, to be honest, and this will come into play as you unlock more legendary items. To be honest, the Heavenly Strike, especially when used in unison with Resolve Increase, is nice, especially if you're playing a DPS samurai, but I tended to prefer the HACHIMAN'S Frenzy until I was able to get more legendary items, to which I switched over to the legendary perk. So those are the various class abilities, ultimates and perks the samurai has. But of course your character or ghost isn't just restricted to these. They have access to various ghost weapons and more. When it comes to the samurai and the ghost weapons, I recommend taking on the healing gourd. This will ultimately add to our survivability, as it will give us another method of healing ourselves. As for your ranged ghost weapons, these are down to personal preference, to be honest with the samurai, and when it comes to your charms, I'd either recommend taking on a utility charm or a melee charm. But of course, there are builds in Ghost of Tsushima, and you should always take what complements your own playstyle. But every class out there has pros and cons. When it comes to the samurai, its biggest pro is its survivability. Even if you're playing a DPS samurai, the class is able to heal itself quite effectively and stay in the fight for long periods. This, combined with a possible increased health pool as well, will all add to your defense and survivability. And then finally for the pros is this class doesn't need to rely at all on stealth to be effective. It can take the enemy on face to face. But of course, every class has cons. With the samurai, one of its biggest cons is it's not the best when it comes to stealth. Thus, it's not the strongest when it comes to assassinations. It can still perform them, but it's going to be outclassed by the hunter and especially the assassin. And the other con for the samurai is you really need a good katana for this class to work well. If you're able to get your hands on one of the legendary katanas, then the samurai is going to be even more effective. But there we have it, that is the basic class guide for the samurai in Ghost of Tsushima Legends. Personally, this class is one of my favourites. I prefer using this class as a tank character, holding up groups of enemies whilst my allies pick off the weaker foes. I love the fact that you're able to stay in the fight for longer, and if you're a fan of the swordplay in Ghost of Tsushima single player, then this is the class I can recommend for you. But regardless, all the classes in Ghost of Tsushima Legends are good, so always go with what feels best for you. So until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you a class guide to the samurai in Ghost of Tsushima Legends. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.